you pretty much forget about the mystery, and the movie goes in some really strange directions, very artsy directions, may I add, that I don't think a lot of people will see coming. Now, this film is a very, very artsy film. In fact, this has been dubbed by some people as quote-unquote the ultimate art house film. And I definitely think that's valid. I mean, really kind of the message I got from this film, what I kind of interpreted as it was trying to say was just that, basically, life, unless you find something really, truly substantial and meaningful to do, is just a series of random events in which you try and kind of distract yourself with, momentary things, but after those distractions wear off, you just go back to wandering aimlessly through your pointless existence until something else interesting happens. That's really the kind of the message this movie is trying to preach, I think, and that's really what these characters in this film are doing. I mean, just random things happen in this movie. Like, the characters just do completely random things for no reason, that serve no purpose to the story. Like, for example, there's this one character who's just kind of wandering through the city, and he comes across this drawing that this half-finished drawing that this guy is in the middle of doing, and on this half-finished drawing, there's this pot of ink, and he just randomly decides to knock over the pot of ink and totally destroy the drawing. And it's just, like, characters just do random little things like that all throughout the film, kind of further committing itself to the idea that we all look for momentary distractions until they wear off, and we just kind of aimlessly search for something else to do. So yeah, the film is very uneventful, it's very slow-moving. I'm sure it's going to be boring to some, but I think it actually is quite effective once you kind of dig beneath the very boring surface and kind of examine the film for all its existential messages, because this film does definitely look at some very existential themes, like I just said. And it's a movie that, there are a lot of different interpretations of the film. What I just said is just my personal interpretation, but I definitely think if you're at all interested in art films, or black and white films, or just cinema in general, this is definitely a movie you should check out and just kind of ponder for a while. I think that there are definitely going to be people who don't like it just because they're not really prepared for this kind of a film, but if you know what you're getting into, I definitely think L'Avventura is a very interesting thing to check out, and may I also just say that this film is, like, feckin' beautiful. Like, the cinematography in this movie is really just truly amazing, and the black and white, I'm so glad this movie was in black and white. I think the black and white just kind of complements the great cinematography in some very interesting ways. And because of that, this movie works both, on a narrative level, well, maybe not a narrative level, but on a thematic level, and on an existential level, and on a visual level. So yeah, if you're into this kind of stuff, I would definitely recommend L'Avventura. It's a film that you definitely... It definitely requires thought, but you have to know what you're getting into before you just recklessly decide to watch a 2.5-hour art film from Italy in the 60s. So yeah, that's L'Avventura. I'm done.
Okay. So, I am now going to discuss another very artsy movie. It is directed by Jean-Luc Godard, who, if you don't know, is kind of the ultimate art house director. I mean, all respect due to Antonioni and Bergman and all those people. He is definitely the most experimental and in many ways kind of daring of all the major classic art house directors. And I watched one of his films this week. It is called Vivre. It stars Anna Karina, who's a great French actress, by the way, as a young girl named Nana, who desperately wants to become an actress and leaves her husband and child in order to pursue that dream. But once she gives it up, once she gives up that dream, she turns to prostitution. And that's the very basic premise of the movie. I mean, that's the concept of the movie, but the movie doesn't really, the movie, damn, I lost my train of thought. The movie definitely doesn't dwell on that. It kind of focuses just more on kind of the day-to-day activities of Nana, rather than the things that she participates in at night. And I think that this is an absolutely amazing movie. This is, in my opinion, the best film that Jean-Luc Godard has directed, and he is very hit and very miss for me. I mean, I love Breathless and Band of Outsiders, but I think that Contempt and Pierre Le Fou are self-indulgent pieces of shit, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Now, Vivre Sa Vie is, it is an absolute masterpiece on many, many different levels. I mean, let's just approach it initially from kind of a performance and script perspective. I mean, it's very loosely scripted. I mean, a good deal of the movie was definitely improvised. But Anna Karina gives an amazing screen performance in this movie. She is nothing more and nothing less than fantastic. She captures just like the emotional complexity of someone like put in circumstances above and beyond her control, and she just does it so well. She just, like, in some scenes in this movie, she can just go through like a huge variety of emotion, and it's just nothing more, nothing less than, I think, exhilarating to watch. The cinematography, I think, kicks the crap out of the cinematography of La Aventura. All respect to
Fuck
that.
you.
There are some amazing compositions in this movie. There are some shots that I like. There are some shots that are just, they could pass for like professional photography. Like if you just paused like the movie for a minute, it's incredible, the cinematography in this movie. But I mean, if you're gonna approach this movie from kind of a narrative level, you're probably going to be severely disappointed. But just like La Aventura, if you approach it from kind of a thematic level, just going in to kind of appreciate just kind of the beauty of it, then I think that Vivre will be an infinitely rewarding experience for you. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and that is my take on Vivre. So, right.
Okay, well, now that's pretty much all we want to discuss as far as, movies we've been watching recently, and now I think we can get into our reviews of The Expendables and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. But let's start out with The Expendables, because, we're just cool that way. So, Expendables. I think we all know kind of the gist of this film. It's, kind of conceptually the ultimate action film, directed and starring Sylvester Stallone and a bunch of other awesome people, like Jason Statham, Jet Li, Dolph Lundgren, Randy Couture, Steve Austin, Terry Crews, Mickey Rourke, and Bruce Willis, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And yeah, I mean, this movie is basically Sylvester Stallone, like, called up all his badass buddies, and it's just like, hey, everyone, let's just make a movie where we just punch and stab each other, alright. And yeah, so this is just a big action film that I think a lot of people have been looking forward to, just because it's kind of, the return to form of a lot of big action stars from the 80s, and that's kind of I'm really rambling with this. So just, right, we all know what The Expendables is. Ryan, what did you think of The Expendables, directed and starring Sylvester Stallone?
I think for a movie that has, like, this much badassery in this movie, and just so many, like, big, famous, like, action stars, approaching it from just an action perspective, I was severely disappointed by The Expendables for several reasons. One being, if I were to approach this movie from, like, kind of a storytelling level, I think this movie kind of, sort of, totally fails, but I'll get into that later. But if I were to approach this movie from an action perspective, I would also be severely disappointed, because there's almost no ass-kicking until the last 30 minutes of the movie. And if I were to approach this movie from just, like, looking at the cast, I would also be severely disappointed, because absolutely none of them bring anything to their roles that any other actor couldn't have done. I can't really express just what a disappointment The Expendables is, because, as you said, the concept of the movie is that it's like the big, like, ultimate action movie, and this should have been the big ultimate action movie. This should have been, like, the most badass thing since the Mona Lisa. Okay, this should have been, like, the most masculine movie ever made, but it kind of fails on this level, because the movie can't really tell if it really wants to kind of dive into, like, the action, or if it really wants to dive into the storytelling.
Okay, no, that's kind of bullshit.
It just doesn't really know where to go and what to do, and because of that, it just kind of just fails for me.
Okay,
for me.
Ryan, I think we definitely agree more than we disagree on this film, because I mean, this movie is so damn flawed, it's not even funny. However, I have a kind of different take on this film. I actually really enjoyed it. It's not a great film. It's not like one of the greatest action films ever made. It's definitely not the ultimate action movie. However, I did really enjoy it just in and of itself, and I think really what the movie's trying to do and what it really succeeds at, and I think this is where a lot of the misunderstandings are coming from, is that this movie is a recreation of everything that was good and terrible about 80s action cinema.